Und damit herzlich willkommen zurück bei The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. In der letzten Aufnahmesession haben wir herausgefunden, dass sich jemand mit den Identifikationspapieren, mit dem Polizeiausweis quasi von Professor Gregson, von Inspektor Gregson, Entschuldigung, nicht Professor, sondern Inspektor Gregson, der getötet worden ist, auf das Treffen von der Red-Headed League geschlichen hat und meinte, ja, ich bin ein Polizist und so, hallo, ich bin Inspektor. Dann wurde dieser entführt und als er weglaufen wollte, hat der Entführer, dieser Franzose, ich weiß gerade nicht seinen Namen, La Roby oder sowas, ein Halsband ihn festgehalten und hat damit Abdrücke hinterlassen, was wir bei seinem Kollegen, dem kleinen Italiener, gesehen haben, weil er auch vom Halsband festgehalten worden ist. Das war so eine rote Wunde hier am Hals. Und dementsprechend lag die Vermutung nahe, dass Inspektor Gregson auch so eine Wunde haben müsste, aber die Leiche von ihm zeigt tatsächlich keine solche Markierungen, quasi gar nichts irgendwie, was ein Halsband zeigt. Und deswegen haben wir uns gedacht, okay, müsste dann wohl jemand anderes sein, der die Papiere gestohlen hat. Wie das Ganze ist, wissen wir nicht. Wir haben jetzt erstmal den Gossip angeklagt, dass der die Papiere vom Inspektor gestohlen hat. Der verneint alles, aber er hat so eine Markierung an seinem Hals, dass da irgendwas drum war. Und was ihn natürlich mehr oder weniger verdächtig macht. Und jetzt kommt seine Cross-Examination. Und wir haben an dem Punkt aufgehört letztes Mal. Und hier sind wir dann jetzt. The Inspector and the Identification Revisited. Und ich würde sagen, wir starten einfach mal und gucken, ob wir Barocke noch irgendwie hier freisprechen können. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man. It's right, see, you think we would have forget these grand lips, huh? I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I have no interest in any red-headed league. I'm all alone in the world. Me, I've no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me, eh? Thought it looked like I could carry off a disguise with a face like this. Vielleicht ist deswegen was falsch gelaufen. It would certainly appear that we have the wrong man. What have I been telling you, eh? There was no need for this pointless testimony. That's right, I'm just a simple peddler, remember? Fresno Street's all I know, Straßenverkäufer. How would I have come by a police inspector's identification book, eh? Well, yes, that's hard to explain, but... A brief cross-examination, I think, Counsel. Very brief. Isn't there anyone in this courtroom who thinks I might be onto something? I stand steadfastly at your side, as always, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay. Cross-Examination. Kazuma führt bestimmt auch irgendwas im Schilde. Oh Mann, ey. The Inspector and the Identification Revisited. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man. Hold it! So you say, but how can you be quite so certain? There's no need to urge your hands on the desk, monsieur. Surely the reason is obvious, no? Because I have never before seen lips like this. De Rousseau, okay. Und er sagt, die Lippen hätte er sich gemerkt. Nevertheless, there's a clear red mark around Mr. Gossip's neck. And it looks very much like that left behind on the neck of your colleague by your prized collar. Mon Dieu, with your words, it is like you tried to wring my neck. It does look very much like my neck though, aye. No, this is a birthmark, lad. The biggest lips in London and a neck to die for. Aye, they broke the mold when they made me. For the first time in my life, I feel lucky to have been born with red hair. And I thought being Japanese made you stand out in London. So you maintain that you've never seen this man before? Oui, c'est ça. I swear to it by the flames of my hair. Of my hair. Sophia's pride has outgrown the frustration with your hair now, has it? It's right, see, you think we would have forgot these grand lips, huh? Oh, whoops. These Fresno Street, ja, alles klar, aber hier. Hold it! Well, yes, I don't imagine I forget those lips in a hurry either. That is what I am saying, For some reason, it makes me wanna eat. How did Fabienne call it? An eclair. You know, I've never seen the hair as black as the years before either. Likewise, I'd never seen red hair like yours until I came to Britain. See, maybe it's a national trait, huh? Maybe all the people from this immense country have the grand lips. No, lad, I was born right here on Fresno Street, and I've never left. Uffa, that is a problem, see. So you definitely didn't go to the park on Lime Street that day, Mr. Gossip. Now how many times do you want me to say it, eh? I never leave Fresno Street, alright. I've no interest in any red-headed league. Hold it! So, you'd heard of the red-headed league, had you? You don't get a name like Gossip for nothing, eh? It's my business to know what's going off in town. I saw that tasty tidbit to a fair few redheads that came past me. Just between us, I even got Sandwich to cover up for it. For was? Ah, okay, für die Red-Headed League, für die Information. Well, he does have a very wet nose, if that counts. Who knows? But as you can see, my own hair's not got a hint of wet in it. And in any case, Fresno Street's my patch. You won't catch me sidling off to some other part of town. No sir, not likely. Und was hat Rousseau zu sagen dazu? Excuse me. Mr. de Rousseau. Oui? Can I help you? Did Mr. Gossip's word now lead you to remember something relevant, perhaps? It was the other day, when I was looking for a place near the park, a small house or something. To be the headquarters of your red-headed league, yes. I visited an housing agent on Lime Street, and there I saw him. This man was paying money to the agent. What? Mr. Gossip, with a housing agent? Okay, mit einem Vermieter? Oui, he had some kind of contract in his hand, and they were clearly discussing terms. But no, you're mistaken, chum. I've never left Fresno Street. Like I said before. You've mistaken me for someone else, someone with the same face. No, the chopper was right. I remember it too. He was paying the man with the banknotes. With notes. Like I said, that wasn't me. I was curious why the man with the dirty clothes had so much money. So I looked at the name on the papers. And what name was written? Mr. Gossip. No, this is the man, he lies. He tells you that he has no name. But in fact, his name is Hugh Boone, huh? It's better than Mr. Gossip, I think. See? Oh no, es ist Hugh Boone! Der Vermieter! Also der Besitzer von der Wohnung, wo Gregson gefunden wurde. I'm a peddler of tidbits of information, like I said, on Fresno Street. And that's that. I don't much like folk talking about my personal life. Indeed. And it is not the intention of the court to invade the privacy of witnesses. Very well, I shall respect your wishes, sir. The aforementioned name shall be redacted from all court records of this trial, assuming no objections. Objection! Ich wollte gerade sagen. I'm sorry, my lord, but the defense does object. because the name just mentioned has a very deep significance to this case. Good gracious, do you similarly object, Prosecutor Azogi? As it happens, my lord, that particular name has already been mentioned during today's proceedings. Well, I never! In what capacity? Sag mal, passe überhaupt auf, der Lord. Ich hatte jetzt 3 Stunden Pause von dem Spiel und ich weiß trotzdem noch, wer Hugh Boone ist. Hugh Boone. The name of the leaseholder of the room. Let me put this very simply. The victim's body was discovered in your rented room. I suggest, sir, that you start talking. Well, alright. I suppose that might be the case, aye. So your real name is Hugh Boone. Well, just between us, I don't like to blow me own trumpet, but there's no finer peddler of tidbits in town. Okay. Ich hätte gedacht, dass es vielleicht ein Undercover-Name sonst wäre von Gregson. Aber scheinbar ist es tatsächlich der Gossip, der Hugh Boone. So I happen to be able to afford a grubby little room in a falling down backstreet townhouse. You do. And once every 6 months, I go and pay the rent to the agent on Lime Street. Damn, imagine paying rent only every 6 months. I remember now. There were 2 vulgar redheads in the last time. If either of us is a vulgar, it's not a me. Think again, Peppino. Why didn't you bring this up before? It's like I told you already. I don't like talking about my personal life. I'm a tidbit peddler as far as everyone else is concerned. No fuss. You will update your testimony to include this most surprising revelation, Mr. Boone. If I must. So the leaseholder Scotland Yard has been looking for since the body was discovered. Has been here under our noses all along. I went the room where that fella was found, it's true, for what difference it makes. Hold it! So, you live in that room presumably, do you? No, I don't live there. What do you think? There's no bed, is there? Just a desk. Then, why would you want to rent it? Well, I don't think I should have to say, really. Then how about the notice board in there? Which was covered from top to bottom in confidential documents only the police should have had access to. Ah, no, that board's not mine. The inspector must have brought it along. It's only the other bits and bobs that belong to me, the desk and the chair and that. People don't generally carry enormous notice boards around with them. The real question is, why was Inspector Gregson killed there in your room? Well, obviously, I have not the faintest idea. I mean, it's causing me no end of bother, to be honest. It seems to me that Mr. Gossip, sorry, Mr. Boone, would rather as little is known about his room as possible for some reason. Yes, it does come across that way. And more importantly, knowing that the scene of the crime is actually his room completely changes things. In particular, there's one part of his testimony that's really bothering me now. That's how I'm finally going to undo this man. Okay, ich weiß noch nicht, was gemeint ist. And about me, I have no control on nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me. Does it look like I could carry off with this guy with a face like this? All alone. Hold it! You mean you have no family? No, none at all. So I spent my days on Fresno Street peddling tidbits to passers-by. Hoping, just between us, this is that eventually someone else with lips like mine will come along. I don't think so. You may be right. Anyway, that mark on your neck is just too much of a coincidence for us to ignore. Well, what's the fella to do then, eh? If you don't believe me, we are at an impasse. And there's nothing I can do to flick me up, but flick me lip. It looks like I'm not going to get anywhere here unless I can produce some proof. You're basically saying I got dressed up and posed as some fancy inspector, aren't you? Well, it's beyond me how you think I could do that. Haben wir denn irgendwas in den Beweisen, was zu Boone... Ich wollte Danny Boone sagen, das ist ein französischer Schauspieler, aber... Ne, wie heißt er nochmal? Na, der andere Boone. Dismissal Notes. Ach ja, stimmt! Von dem Vigil, der verschwundene Gefängniswärter, da haben wir... Das ist ja jetzt irgendwie gar keine Sache mehr, ne? Couldn't Governor Barry Corden. Aber nichts von Boone. Letter of Introduction. Hopefully now he'll be well. Okay. Hier ist Mr. Vigil. Photo with the victim. White hairpiece. Oh, das war doch in seinem... In the world, me, I have no claim for or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Das Bild von Miss Vigil war doch in seinem Raum. Warum auch immer. Das wird ja zeigen, dass er nicht alleine ist in dieser Welt. Ich probier's mal aus.
Objection!
If you have no kinfolk, as you put it, then explain why it is that among the sparse furnishings we found this photograph in the room. Ah! I presume, as you've been renting the room, that this photograph belongs to you, does it not? Oh, well... Mr. Boone, drop the pretense and tell the court exactly who you really are. Da ist die Musik wieder. Let's go. I don't know what. What do you mean? I'm a peddler. I keep telling you so. You really don't need to bother with me. Please, just leave it alone. As the man says, leave it alone. Whatever the truth is about this man's life, it has no bearing on this case. Because it's simply not possible that he impersonated Inspector Gregson.
Objection!
How can you be so sure? Just look at the man. No amount of disguise could ever hide those unmissable features.
Objection!
But what if we were to look at this the other way around? What do you mean? Yes, counsel. What do you mean? Well, there's no denying that Mr. Boone's lip is very prominent indeed. But consider the possibility that his prominent lip is itself part of an elaborate disguise. Oh. Ist er vielleicht Vigil? Mr. Vigil? Könnte das hinkommen? Von der Frisur her auf jeden Fall ein bisschen. Then hiding that prominent feature, in other words, revealing his true face, would make an utterly impenetrable disguise. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Hugh Boone? Ah! Good witness, are you still hiding the truth from this court? If that's a disguise, then underneath it, his true identity must be... Yes, that's right. There's really only one person he could really be. My lord, the defense believes it can reveal Mr. Boone's true identity to the court. No, please, no. Very well then, counsel. What is the true identity of this peddler who goes simply by the name of Gossip on the street? Es ist natürlich, wie könnte es anders sein, Daily Vigil. Der seit 10 Jahren nicht mehr im Gefängnis arbeitet. Your real name is actually Mr. Vigil, isn't it? Mr. Daily Vigil. Ja! I don't recall that name, Counselor. Who is this Mr. Vigil? It's a name I encountered yesterday, my lord. It has to do with a certain client of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. A young gentleman came to the detective, asking him to locate her missing husband. The woman in this photograph, in fact. This is Miss Vigil. What? From what I understand, you haven't returned home since the night before the inspector was found dead. But of course, on that night, you were being held captive by the 2 red-haired League men. And last night, you were put up by the prosecution service in preparation for testifying in this trial. Because we've been led to believe that you, Miss Venus and Mr. Sandwich were all homeless. Being important witnesses in this case, we needed to know where we could find you, of course. Okay. By the prosecution in testifying. Returned home, okay. And that explains why you've not only been unable to return home, but also unable to contact your wife, who's been beside herself with worry, waiting for you at the Vigil residence. Dann haben wir ja den Fall für Herlock gelöst. Now, was hat er jetzt gesagt? Now, just hold on a minute. I don't have the first idea what I'm talking about. Really? It is simply enough matter to confirm my suspicions. All we have to do is pull off that disguise. No! Please! Bailiff, bring soap, a sponge and a wash bowl at once. Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi, you will restrain the witness. Oui, my lord. Si, my lord. Waha! No! Stop! Get off! Don't! Well. Well. We are now seeing your true features, I presume. Lift your head, sir, so the court can see your face. It would appear that the defense counsel's assertion was entirely correct. This has all been a very elaborate deception. So witnesses, tell the court, have you seen this man before? I don't believe it, but... See, there's no question. This is the inspector. This is the inspector we saw in the park. Extraordinary. On the day of the Red-Haired League enrollment, the man claiming to be Inspector Gregson, who appeared before Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi in the park, was you disguised as the inspector, or rather, was you posing as the inspector and no disguise at all. Mr. Vigil was formerly employed as a chief warder at Barclay Prison. The chief warder? Then your career had promise. Why, you would quite possibly have become the future governor of the prison. What on earth have you been doing, peddling tittle-tattle on Fresno Street? Well, it's been 10 years since Mr. Vigil worked at the prison. Ja, und warum nochmal? Wegen dem Professor irgendwie, ne? Chief Warder Daily Vigil is relieved of his post with immediate effect for having violated clause 132 of Her Majesty's Code of Conduct for Prisons. All rights to redundancy pay and other financial benefits are fully revoked. Reason for dismissal: aiding and abetting the escape from the prison of convict Genshin Azori wahrscheinlich, just prior to his execution. Details of his escape are still being investigated. Full cooperation with inquiries will be expected. Barry Caden. Additional notes: indications are that the jailbreak plot was conceived prior to the convict's incarceration. It's believed that the convict engaged in some form of negotiation with prison staff in order to secure assistance. Full disclosure of the information regarding these negotiations will be demanded. Okay. 10 years. I'm really dreadfully sorry about all of this. Yes, it's true. I am daily vigil. And you were the chief warder at Barclay Prison 10 years ago. So where did Mr. Hugh Boone come from? Boone is the other me. It's a name I invented. Well, evidently there's a great deal under the surface here. I'll explain everything. I'll tell you just how wretched my life has become. Okay. As you say, it was 10 years ago now that my employment as Barclay's chief warder came to an end. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage. Ist die Musik gerade, die da spielt? Das hört sich wie eine düstere Version an, wie das Court Begins Theme, was spielt, wenn man wenn die Gerichtsverhandlung beginnt. Glaube ich, finde ich. Oder? Vielleicht auch nicht, keine Ahnung. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage. But times were hard in London, and I found no suitable engagements at all. In desperation one day, I turned my hand at selling wares on Fresno Street. But your wife appears to know nothing of... Nein, Quatsch! Das ist die Courtroom-Lobby-Musik, wenn man im Antechamber ist, im Vorraum. Oh, aber halt auf düsterer. But your wife appears to know nothing of this. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation, okay, und dann ist in der Fresno Street gelandet. She still maintains that you are the chief warder at Barclay Prison. I was utterly determined that my wife should not know of my failings, which is why I've never told her. I opened an account at the bank under the name of Hugh Boone, and rented the cheapest room I could find on Fresno Street. The scene of the very crime we are investigating. Yes, that's right. A place from which I could emerge every morning at 8 as a squalid peddler, and transform myself back every evening at 5 into a well-dressed man about town before returning home. That quickly became my daily routine. Ein Doppelleben geführt. I was puzzled by the lack of furniture in the room. But that explains it. But why on earth didn't you just tell us this in the first place? I have a wife, sir, and 2 sons. 2 Söhne sogar, okay. And without wishing to sound self-conceited, they regard me with some pride. I couldn't bring myself to disappoint them. So instead, you decided to conceal your occupation from them. Yes. I've made such a terrible mess of everything. Still, one thing doesn't add up. No matter how many tidbits of information you could sell to passing gentlemen, even at 6 pence apiece, you couldn't hope to match the salary you must have commanded as chief warder at the prison. Very true. To have kept your family in comfort, despite 10 years of somewhat misbegotten employment. True. Woher hatte er das Geld dann? That was all thanks to Inspektor Gregson. Okay. What? Inspector Gregson? What on earth? It was some years after I'd invented Boone and begun my other life as a street seller. The inspector, that is, recognized me one day. Do you mean to say the victim was an acquaintance of yours? I knew him from my time working at the prison. When he saw what I'd become, he was deeply troubled for me and my family. And from that day forward, he visited me on Fresno Street with increasing regularity. Ehrenmann. Then one day, he asked me if I would carry out a secret assignment for him. A secret? What was it? I was to impersonate the inspector. What? Impersonate him? Für die Red-Headed League. We always met in that little room so the inspector could brief me. Visit Orxies tomorrow and take a statement from the proprietors. Orxies? It was always something along those lines. Surveillance work, interviewing people. On those occasions, he would lend me his identifications so people would believe who I was. My instructions were to make an impression, to let people know that Inspector Gregson had been at work. And for those services, he compensated me financially. A Scotland Yard inspector willingly relinquished his identification into your care with intent to deceive. That, as I'm sure I need not point out, is a very serious criminal offense. But why? What was the point of you impersonating him? I truthfully do not know. All I can say is that the inspector warned me on numerous occasions. Now remember, Vigil, I need your solemn word. You don't blab about this to anyone, alright? Ever. Even if I end up a croaker. Versprechen gebrochen, ne? In time, he started to bring papers with him to the room as well. It became something of a second office for him. So, in fact, the person who declared himself to be Inspector Gregson at the park on Lime Street was really... Yes, it was me, acting on the inspector's orders. As usual, I removed my Boone disguise, and then went as instructed to the park, armed with the inspector's identification book. It never occurred to me that the bruise on my neck might give me away. Damn!